Melbourne. Everyone's talking about it as the next big place to boom. But what's actually happening on the ground? Together with property investor and buyer's agent Steve Ash, we go to 3 separate opens: Frankston, Hoppers Crossing, and Broadmeadows, to bring you a real-time look at what's happening in the Melbourne property market right now, packed with raw on-the-ground footage and area insights of 3 totally different ends of Melbourne. The good parts and the bad parts. So you get a better picture of what's really happening in the Melbourne property market.
So come and join me as I go pick up Steve Ash so we can find out together what's really happening in the Melbourne property market right now. My name's Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast. And this episode is powered by our amazing show sponsors, InvestorKit, Inside 2, Property Developer Network, and Property Strats. More about them in the show notes below. But right now, come for a drive with me as I put Steve Ash in the chair next to me and check out the Melbourne property market.
Which open we going to, man?
So we're going to 22 Golconda Avenue in Frankston. I'm looking at sort of where there's value in my budget. So I wanted to check out Southeast. I'm hearing a lot about Frankston and how busy it is. So it's 3-bed, 1 bathroom. We've just had the rate cut. So seen some good price growth. I think it's a good one to explore. So let's have a look.
So the rate cut. Now, this is the 24th of May to timestamp this, that we're filming this right now. It's a Saturday. A second rate cut that we've had. Now, the first rate cut, is that one of the things that kind of spurred this on? Like, when did Frankston actually start seeing a little bit more interest in the market this year?
When we're kind of going to opens in sort of November, December, I mean, there's quite a few first home buyers there, but it wasn't, we're getting 10 groups maybe there. Then sort of when January hit, all of a sudden we're getting a lot more, so about 20. And we had the first rate cut in Feb. All of a sudden we're getting 50 groups opens. And we just couldn't believe, it was like a light switch. Yeah. And all of a sudden, so much competition. So we have no idea what's going to happen today with the second rate cut. So it's going to be a good use case, and you know what's going to happen when we go there. Some people forecasting 50 basis points, but we got 25, which I think is the right call.
Well, you and I were chatting about this just the other day.
Yeah.
I think we're both pegging 25.
Yeah.
One of the things you'd like to be wrong on, but
yeah, it'd obviously be nice to get a little bit more, but I think
50 was a bit optimistic.
50 a bit optimistic, you know, it really would have caused a bit of a frenzy, I think, out there. So just being cautious, the RBA there, and I think that's the right decision. But again, this is going to be so interesting today. I'm evaluating these 3 properties, Frankston being the first to see what actually happens, and sort of what competition's out there and what sentiment change there might be.
So one of the really big things that I want people to get from these videos, Steve, is, and you're really good at this because you lived around here as well as buying a lot around here.
Yeah.
What can you not get from an agent? What can you not get from Google Maps? What can we really show people about Frankston?
There's obviously good roads. There's good pockets of Frankston. I mean, one of the funny things is actually there's a big cemetery right in the middle of one of the spots in Frankston.
Cemetery.
The cemetery, yeah. That's a big no-no if you're going to buy a property. Who's going to buy that property from you sort of in 7 years?
Well, these are neighbours aren't they?
Well, no, exactly.
So tell me more about what the locals really want.
Well, from my time there, and it's one of the reasons why we moved there, obviously you've got the coastal, you've got the beach there, you've got the access to the peninsula, which is beautiful. So you've got a lot of Aussie-born families there. They like the big plots, where a bit of a yard there, nice house, so not too much into splitter blocks, but yeah.
Okay, so not quite as culturally diverse as some areas?
No, like if you look at Broadmeadows, for example, a lot of Middle Eastern sort of demographic there. Here we're kind of looking a lot more Aussie-born. And yeah, the backyard cricket. You've obviously got the beach not too far away. Yeah. You've got the Frankston shopping centre, which is quite big there. Really living an Australian style lifestyle there.
So tell me a little about these shops, Steve.
All we've got here, so around Melbourne, there's 20 activity centres, and so the state government are trying to turn Frankston into an activity centre. So there's a lot of rezoning that's happening around this particular area. So we're very close to the shopping area here. We've got the basketball stadium, that's a massive complex being built down the road there. And the hospital sort of got a 1 billion renovation coming up, which is obviously going to be massive.
Massive, isn't it? Like a helipad and new maternity ward and everything.
Yeah, no, indeed.
So it's just here.
Yeah, it's a beach. Yeah, just coming down towards the beach here.
This jetty looks nice, man.
I mean, this has been completely developed, and when we lived here, we used to take the little one down here. Nice foreshore, nice walks, and you've got a big pier that goes
around.
Yeah, and a great playground there. Yeah.
So as far as family areas are concerned, this This is a solid family spot.
It is. It's a beautiful place to live, and we're coming out of Frankston now. coming into Frankston South, this is Oliver's Hill. And some of these properties here with the sea views, I mean, you're millions. So we go from Frankston, where you can purchase, probably mid-6s to mid-7s at the moment, probably a little bit towards the mid-7s. And here you've got the real glitz and glamour of Oliver Hill. And we're going to go to a lookout in a second, and we're going to see some pretty good views across to Melbourne, depending on the haze. And a little local fact about Oliver's Hills, this is a big meet Saturday mornings, Friday nights, where people can go and look at the sunsets, but there's also a bit of a running club. So a lot of people just running up and down, a bit of fitness activity, beautiful views. So just quickly, we're going to Golconda Avenue. We're in Kringle. So currently the median price from Frankston is $749,000 for houses with a yield of 3.74. Now the interesting thing here is that yield was around 4.1%, I'd say, in January. So this just goes to show the price increase that we've seen in the first 3 months of this year. We're obviously filming in May, so actually it's a little bit longer than that, but clearly prices are moving. So the average rent here is $539 per week at the moment.
Speaking of interesting, we're literally driving past the Open right now. How many cars are you seeing parked at the front here?
I think we've got 20 or so.
Steve,
That's me.
fantastic. And is one also to invest or to live in?
Yeah, invest. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Sure.
I'm excited.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. It's neat and clean, isn't it?
The other things I'm doing is actually this checking if stuff actually works as well. But I can hear the gas, but I can't actually see anything work. Oh my God, this is a classic. You remember them?
Bad outlet.
So personally, I'm looking for things like this as well. And then there's a bit of flicker on the light, but I'd want to be looking into that because that's more than likely just a bit of paint flaking, but that could actually be a leak in the roof. So it'd be something that if I was interested, I'd be checking out in more detail.
Yeah.
And personally, I always want to check inside wardrobes as well. So the carpet, when they've done this, they've also done the carpet inside, but I normally look in here because this is where there can be some loose carpet, which this isn't loose, this is all down, but you can check if there's nice floorboards underneath if you were going to do a reno.
Something going on here, isn't there?
Yeah, there's been something, there's a bit of sag here. And so this is one of the things as well that you can see if I go right in here, the nails are actually loose because it's not actually the nails that hold the ceiling up. Plus you should have screws, not nails. It's actually the glue. So more than likely there has been some kind of a leak.
This one's subsiding a bit.
Perfect. So if we can actually see, if we zoom in here, looks like we're losing a little bit of ceiling there. And here's exactly what I was talking about before. So we do actually have nice wooden floorboards underneath, and you see the smooth edge is still there. So that would have probably been some 1970s carpet that was down beforehand. All in all though, apart from any kind of Vic minimum standards, this is rentable. Something else that I'm checking here is that this is all grout in the corners. Instead of actually having silicone in there, your shower's pretty small, feels like about 800 by 800. Obviously looks like it's all working condition. It's a decent sized bathroom though, you've actually got a nice footprint that you could work with. Toilet being off to the side as well. Nice big mirror, but again, totally rentable. There's definitely something going on with these ceilings though. The other thing I'm checking is gutters. It's one of those things that is an expectation for it to just work. It's not a value add if you have to fix it, but everything actually looks pretty reasonable here. Hot water service also looks like it's reasonably not new, but not too old. This looks like it's something that's potentially only been put in a few years ago. Gas connection down here as well. Everything looks like it's all nice and intact. We do have a little inspection point under the house. This is always really good to just check out if you can. If you don't mind getting dirty, you can usually really find out a lot about it when you start looking under it. Skirt. Let's have a look here. Let's see as much as we can. There's no piles or anything that are crooked. There's nothing that looks like it's falling down that I can see. Also lets us know a little bit more about, are they concrete? Are they stumps? So this all looks like it's concrete as well, which is really good. Instead of old wooden ones that might be rotting or in need of some repair. Steve just pointing out there's a bit of mold in these eaves here, which is bang on about. And normally, as you were just saying, these are normally asbestos as well. Yeah. You have to be really careful when it comes to actually repairing this kind of stuff. But again, this just kind of talks more about the potential issue in the roof if there is any kind of a leak. which
Yeah.
there is.
One up there, yeah.
It's not all about it being the worst thing, and you actually can't buy it. It's just more about being aware if you do have problems that need to be fixed. So a really simple thing to do, and that's really important on the ground, is having a look at the neighbours. This is something that, just looking over the fence, and this isn't me being a weirdo peeking over, this is literally just standing height, and all of a sudden we can see next door's got boarded up windows, there's a whole bunch of rubbish everywhere. And again, it's not a complete deal breaker, but it's something that you absolutely want to be aware of. And an agent they're not going to point out stuff like this to you. They're not very going to show you something that's going to make the property less desirable. But when you're here, you want to be checking stuff like this out. And so now we're leaving, like exactly, what is the time now, mate?
So 10:50.
Okay, so the Open's been on for 10 minutes. There's cars all the way down that way, cars all the way down this way to like directly in front of us. There's people everywhere. The agent said there was already, 30 groups?
37, I think.
37 groups through, and we're leaving early. Okay, tell me about the house. What do you reckon?
Well, it's on the high side of the street, which is good. We did notice problems with the ceiling there. So it looked like there'd been a bit of damage there and inside, and they could have cleaned it up a little bit. But
It all looked pretty minor though. Like nothing was like, this is a huge problem.
nothing too crazy. The land size is pretty good. 547. One of the interesting things that struck me, not just about the house, so a lot of first-time buyers there, not too many investors, not too many buyers agents, which is interesting.
Let's be honest, you can't always tell an investor 100%,
No.
but a first-time buyer usually has a look about them. They're looking at a property in a different way.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more sort of like apprehensive looking.
Yes.
Like a lot of the people in there looked like young people, young couples. They didn't look like they were sort of going through meaning business. They looked like they were going through looking for a home.
Looking for a home, and then just kind of looking at some of the concerns that we said. So I had a comment in there about the ceiling. Looks like the ceiling's stuffed, and so that doesn't sound to me like, an investor or anything. It was just more concern about, okay, if we move in here, or it's a bit scary or whatever.
I heard that girl say, this looks really scary.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's literally a piece of gyprock that needs to be resheeted. Like there's nothing to it.
But to most people, it is scary.
Exactly. To me though, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
For me, I think that block's a little bit too small. I would want a little bit bigger because there's actually not the block, but it was so far back.
Yeah.
As far as your options and what you can do with that house and the amount of frontage that you just lose with this massive front yard, I think there'd be better options.
There are better options. I mean, but this is one of the things, there's not too many properties actually to look at this weekend. And this is something to factor in when you're looking at property and coming to Melbourne. So the boundary is 580 to 638 for this particular property, 638,000. So you always add a maybe 10% on. So they were clearly aiming for that 700 sort of mark, early 700. So that's kind of like what you're budgeting there. But there isn't much you can do. It's quite a wide frontage, needs a bit of work. But yeah, you can't really manufacture a lot of equity growth there, I'd say. But it'd be interesting to see where it goes, obviously at auction. If it goes mid 700s, which it could well do, probably a no for me.
And something like that as well, it does really look like proper classic first home buyer. You can live in it. Dad's the one telling you, it's all right, you can roll up your sleeves, do a little bit of this along the way. Like there's nothing too scary about it, but there's something that still isn't like you're at the highest absolutely renovated price point.
As Steve and I left Frankston, we got a chance to chat with real estate agent Heidi Andrews, getting a few extra local market insights.
So we're seeing the highest demand at the moment actually in Frankston North. We're seeing a great value for money in terms of the land size, the type of home you're buying, a beautiful family home. So many buyers, so many things are going off market, and then on market we're seeing renovated homes achieving up in the high sevens at the moment as well in Frankston North. We're selling a huge percentage of our properties off market at the moment. Sometimes we even struggle to get them on market because we're getting multiple offers before they've even hit the market from buyers agents, investors, or even just savvy buyers who pick up the phone and say, what have you got coming to market? We're seeing the most demand in units and townhouses at the moment for owner occupiers. Lots of people trying to get out of that rental market into their own first home. And of course, their affordability is in units and townhouses.
So you can see like fancy construction to the right. It's going to be massive for the west of Melbourne. So this is the Westgate tunnel, and it's due to complete end of 2025. And it should vastly sort of reduce commuting times in from these areas in the west. The Westgate Freeway carries 200,000 vehicles each day. It's a critical link in the transport ecosystem, and they're widening the freeway from 8 lanes to 12 lanes, and that really helps support Victoria's growing population. That's what we're seeing out in the west, so it will just really help reduce that congestion.
And so this whole thing on the left here,
Yeah,
This is like another entrance and exit point.
it is. Yes, it is.
That's massive. And to put this into scale, this looks like about what, a 10-story building on the left and maybe like a 7-story there. Maybe not quite, but it's huge.
yeah,
Okay, so they're the entry and exit points.
yeah. It's going to change things massively out here. And a lot of the people I speak to kind of live out in Melbourne way. I've been waiting for it to be completed for a long time.
So tell me a little bit more about the one we go into at Hoppers, Steve.
Yeah, so this is 38 Warrenwood Avenue, Hoppers. So the interesting thing about this particular property is quite close to Hoppers Station. This property's pretty close to the station. I'd say 300, 400 metres.
Okay, so they're closest that you want, not like right next to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're right next to it, I mean, yeah, kind of obviously it's industrial, whatever, it's noisy. But here, you set back enough, like, to make it interesting. You're looking at the floor plan, but like there was an extra family room out the back, but it looked like it might be a granny, so I'm interested to tease that out, how that might look, because there might be a conversion that could be done there, maybe convert from a 3-bedroom to 4-bedroom, see if there's something that could be done with the floor plan. It was quite hard to tell from the pictures.
More opportunity, you reckon, in this one than Frankston as far as the property, if we disregard the location?
Yeah, if we look at the floor plan and exactly what's on the land, yeah, this was by far a more interesting proposition than what we've seen in Frankston.
All right, and before we get there, you picking more competition here, less competition, or not competition, so like, buyer interest? What do you think?
Well, I think there'll be a lot less buyers, but here's the interesting thing. We're looking almost 100,000 less than the property that we just looked at. So I think this one's going to be around that mid-600s, maybe a little bit more. And so again, we'll just have the rate cut. So let's just see what happens when we get there, see how many groups are looking through it. But clearly, like, there's big plans for the West out there, and the population growth is going to be massive, like over the next 20 years or so. So we just come off the freeway here, just in Hoppers Crossing, just coming through sort of the industrial bit. We've just got the station on the left. Yeah.
Shops everywhere as well.
Shops everywhere.
So already the feeling on the street here, looking at this, is like it's not lower socioeconomic, but it's certainly not affluent. It's a very middle ground kind of feel. That's what I've got. There's a few yards that look like they've got a little bit of, let's just say, hard rubbish. But otherwise, most people's like lawns are mowed. Not everyone. Most people looks like they're taking care of the properties. There's a few sort of average dodgy looking ones, but the dodgy looking ones look like they are the exception, not the rule. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Steve, from what you're seeing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I mean, there's a few sort of cars parked on gardens, but it's a much better well-kept area than what we've just seen. You can see the appeal of wanting to live here.
All right, so we're turning onto Warrenwood Avenue right now.
I see a few cars up here, so I think
This is actually a nice tree line, Steve.
It is, yeah. Look, it's a wide street.
There's a shopping trolley there, though. It's a bit
So, I decided, I had to go to Big W earlier, so I'm trying to spoil the appeal so I can buy myself here.
Right, and so we've got a few cars out here. Like, I'm assuming we're getting pretty close to the Open.
Yeah,
is that it?
Yeah, that's where we are here.
So on the right there. On the left, sorry.
Yeah, it's got on the left there.
And it looks like we've already got, what would you say, sort of 8 cars?
Yeah. And we're just right on time here. I don't think this is the first Open today. This one's going to auction.
And this the name?
Steve, Ash.
No worries, thank you.
Okay.
I'll put it in there. Yeah, that's fine, no worries.
Looks good under here. Simple little thing you really want to make sure of. If you've got a gas cooktop here, that your range hood, one is vented atmospherically or as a recycler, but it's the distance here is actually 650 between the range hood and the actual top of the burner, because otherwise it's non-compliant and you won't get it signed off. And the only way to fix it is to actually move this up, which is doable, but it's a massive headache. Person have done such a good job on the inside there with that kitchen. That first impression is amazing, and now it feels like all it probably would have taken here is a paint job and some reflooring. You're not looking at a huge extra expense just to keep that emotional level higher. A little bit of a step down to the floors here. All look good. Definitely haven't been done professionally, but they look nice. Go.
wardrobe storage here, still just the original, but it's all nice and tidy, tenant ready. We don't have to inflow gas heating, just here. Okay, master bedroom. This is looking much nicer. This is definitely a bigger size as well. So it looks like they've got an open ensuite, a little bit different. So we've got the shower here, which is 100% cozier. Let's get into this. All right, now obviously I'm a bit bigger, but you can see that is technically a shower, but I can't really put my arms out. It's very snug, but it's better than no extra bathroom. Toilet's just in here. So you got toilet number 2, bathroom, making a statement in here. So lots of mirrors, bath behind here, tiling all the way to the ceilings. But so you have to paint it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So this is just the same wood that's in that extension out the back. All it does is paint it, but it just lifts it so much, like opposed to looking at that older wood. So they've done a great job in here. Shower over the bathtub. It looks like this has actually just been recessed in, so the bathroom will be on the other side, keeping the wet areas nice and close to each other, making this more cost effective to actually transition over. Now, if you did want to make more of a statement, connecting these two would actually achieve that. However, from the functionality perspective, this is a better layout to actually keep a separate toilet. The reason you can get away with it though is because you've got the 7 bathroom. That would have meant that you actually got one bigger space to actually play with when it comes time to actually design the layout of the bathroom.
All right, man. So leaving that open, what are your thoughts?
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting property. I like the location, obviously quite close to all the amenities. We've just had lunch there in Hoppers and close to the station, so there's a lot to like about it. Lovely street. It's a bit bland from the outside, but, you know, looking at what the price point is, you know, what can you expect? It was a very interesting house when you went into it. It'd be good to get your take from a bit of a sort of like renovator, but half the place was renovated, half wasn't. I wasn't a big fan of like the pit in the middle. What's the word of calling it?
It's called a sunken living room. Like, personally, I like it.
Yeah.
But again, because you and I were chatting about that, like it is such a personal thing. And I remember when I was an agent, it's a real market splitter. Yeah. So I think they're kind of cool, but not everyone really likes them. But the other thing was like, I think you even said half renovated. Like the kitchen looked cool, the bathrooms looked good. Going into that back room and all of a sudden feeling like you stepped back into the 70s was kind of weird.
Like, it's like a cricket pavilion, and that would be one thing I'd sort of think. The first thing I'd go and see if that was approved and it's not an illegal structure or anything. Because initially, the thing that drew me to that particular property with the price point, but the value add, what we could do if we could do something with that floor plan. It's really just like a bolted on room, it seems, and from the 70s, and reminded me of my old cricket sort of pavilions back in the day.
Well, and the fact that you got to step down to it as well, it really eliminates that feeling of the house being bigger, and like you said, gives you that feeling of like just tacked on.
Tacked on, and kitchen looked great. I wasn't too sure on it being on the back wall, but
the functionality of the kitchen I'm not sold on, but just the aesthetic of it, it looked good.
It did look good, yeah. But then you go into a couple of bedrooms and they're not done. Like a couple of other bedrooms looked okay. It's a decent plot of land around the back. Again, decent side access, so you might be able to do something down there. Obviously, the thing that I'd be thinking about is if you got it, held it for say 10 years, you could potentially knock that down and maybe do a side-by-side, obviously because of the proximity to the station. It's a nice rectangular plot. The other thing about Hoppers, like just on a side note for this, I noticed it was on stumps. Is like that what you saw as well?
I did.
You were thinking it might be a slab, but I think it's stumps. So one thing I just wanted to call out for people watching, get your building and pests done, because we are seeing quite a bit of movement in the floor area, especially on stumps, and it's just something to be mindful of. Obviously any property you do, but particularly in this pocket.
And now if we're comparing this so far to where we've been now in Frankston, where we've been in Hoppers Crossing, and where we're about to go to now in Broadmeadows, which one's still your top pick, knowing what we already know about these two and what we're about to find out about this one?
So obviously price point comes into this a little bit as well. If you could get it around sort of like that early to mid sixes, then that would kind of have that one in front, because you've got a bit of value out down the track. You could potentially do a little bit more. You're a lot closer to the station. I think the location's a bit better, close to all the shops, etc. But the one thing with Hoppers is that vacancy rate's a little bit more higher, and then properties aren't renting as quickly in Hoppers, so that's something to be mindful of. So while that yield, I think this probably rent for, in its current condition, 500, so 650. Probably looking just on about a 4% yield, I'd say. So that probably puts it ahead, but very interested to see what we come up with now in Broady.
You know, the other thing I was actually a little bit surprised about was the amount of people. I wasn't expecting that many.
Yeah.
I really thought it was going to be half that amount, like still a bit of competition, a bit of interest, but not that many. Because like we'll have a chat with the agent later to find out exactly where it was, but it looked like it was probably 15, 20 groups maybe?
15, 20 groups through, and I think I don't think this was the first Open, I think it was the second Open, and this is another one that's going to auction. But the interesting thing, you could clearly pick a couple of buyers agents looking through that today. So there's obviously a bit of interest there. So we met a couple of people there, a couple of investors who recognised us, and we had a bit of a chat there.
Yeah, shout out to the two fellas we met at Hoppers Crossing. I hope you end up securing that block of units, mate.
100%. But then there was a lot more, so there's a lot of owner occupiers looking around as well. You can clearly see there's a lot of interest in the Hoppers Crossing area. All right.
So tell me about Broadmeadows, mate. This is a very talked about area.
Yeah, I think Broadmeadows is probably one of the most debated suburbs probably that you've got on your list. Obviously very low socioeconomics, quite a big area. It's one of the neighbourhood activity centres like we were talking about with Frankston earlier. It's one of the reasons why I like it, and there's been a bit of rezoning that's happened in the area, so we'll talk about that. 35 Natalie Street is where we're going, so very close to there. So the population in Broadmeadows, I should say, is about 12,500. Median price is 576,000 at the moment. The other thing I wanted to call out with Broadmeadows as well, the stock this year has been incredibly tight. And so looking for this particular property for us to look at, obviously we've had to schedule in because we've had the Melbourne Beachfront Property Roadshow today in the car, but this was one of the only sort of houses I could find that really wasn't in a housing commission area and did ticked a few of the boxes. So very tight stock on market here at the moment.
Because the housing commission areas, they're close by though, but this is still completely out of it, yeah?
This one is, yeah.
Okay.
This one is. So really the pockets in Broadmeadows is kind of like, let me get it right, sort of like southwest near the station, and then sort of southeast near the station. The parts in the northern bits are slightly out. I think the really good pocket is in that sort of northeast, above Cuthbert Street, those sort of areas. Sort of Kahuna, Gosford, those sort of areas, very nice pockets, or pockets where there's a lot of opportunity, I should say.
Just first impressions, what do we got?
So it's a bit of a busy road, and we're
cars?
right. Yeah, 5 cars, busy road. We're right opposite a school here.
Yeah.
Looking at this, which obviously not ideal.
No.
But again, we didn't have much to sort of choose from today. Steve, yeah, that's me.
Pleasure to meet you both. I'm
Listen,
Stephanie.
I'm Todd. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Stephanie. Alright, so instantly we got like a couple of people at the front, but not much. I genuinely thought this was going to be second busiest to Frankston. So townhouses next door. Looks like they started getting this ready for sale a little while back. Weeds have started growing through. This is something that's always worth checking is your electrical meter, making sure that it's actually been upgraded, which from what I can see, I'm not a Sparky, but it looks like that one has. Otherwise, you're spending a lot of money just getting it back up to zero. Instant impressions, smells like a reasonably fresh paint job. Floors, still the original, you got in-floor heating, roller shutters in here. This is the other big thing to check as well. Making sure that these actually work, because so much of the time they don't, and they're super expensive to actually replace. People don't tend to pay a lot more for roller shutters, but going through and actually putting them all the way down, all the way up, which I'm not going to do right now, if you genuinely are interested in it, it's a really good one. The other thing as well is windows, they have to lock in Victoria. So making sure that you've actually got a window, especially these old sash windows, a lot of the time when you open them, they won't stay open. So windows got to be able to lock and stay open as well. Simple little things to check, because they just cost more to fix. Yeah, they're just living up there.
Something going up there.
Kitchen looks nice.
You see this old sort of like antique sort of air conditioner unit. So in Victoria, we need heating and cooling instruments. But if you're buying this property, you're going to rent it out. It's probably best to remove it, because if it's there, there'll be kind of an onus to sort of repair or something on it. So it's probably just best doing it. You can see over here we've got the new heating and cooling. So they've done it. So you might get away with it, but some people, I've seen instances where you have to do something with this. So I thought I'd call that out.
Yeah, Steve's right. The oven is a little bit... Yeah, it works. It's fine. You're obviously very much compliant here. So it looks like the in-floor heating possibly works as well. So the bathroom is 2 ways. Simple things like this. Got a cracked tile here. It's not the end of the world, but this looks like that's actually loose. It's been stuck down with a little bit of silicone, but you can clearly see that's loose. The silicone job here, this is just waiting to have a water issue. Which, speaking of which, there is a water issue. Don't know what's going on here, but there's a whole bunch of water around the loo. So there's some kind of a leak going on here. And kickboards, everything. If you look closer here, that's already coming up. Looks like we just got the tail end of that one there, but agent was nice enough to tell us there was 9 groups that came through. Steve actually had a look under the house, and what did you find, Steve?
Yeah, so wooden stumps. So they didn't look like there was any movement, which is good. You can see the house was sloping down, so it's always good just to have a look under there, just to sort of see if there potentially was any movement, any problems over. It looked in pretty good condition. It looks like they had a go at sort of sprucing up. There looked like there was some ducted under the floor as well, so it all like, yeah.
They had gas heating under there. So, what are your thoughts, eh?
Okay, all right. So it's an instant no, just because of the location opposite the school. We obviously had a quick look under the house and wooden stumps, but I just think the location just you know, is the drawback. We're opposite the park. The fence was flattened. Well, technically, you could do a development there. I know you had some views on that. He's sloping down.
And next door did, but I can't help but think you're going to be spending a lot on retaining.
Yeah, it's definitely a pass. And there was obviously, was it 9 groups at the Open? So
that's actually my biggest surprise. I genuinely thought there was going to be more. I've been to houses that were, in my opinion, less desirable in like Dallas and Broadie before, and seen more people. Yeah. I'm only talking a few months back. I'm not talking like ages ago.
No.
And to only have 9 there.
And that tallies with what we've been seeing in the area. You know, the auctions I've been a part of, like, you know, lots of people there, and we'll get some intel from the agent in a second, but he'll tell you about the auction he did last week, which was pretty oversubscribed. So it was a bit of a surprise, but I think kind of if we look at it, owner-occupier right opposite the school, sloping land, maybe it's not too much of a surprise. And it's a hard one, as we're talking about. Hardly any stock on market. We're looking at 3 locations. We've been in the southeast. We've just come from Hoppers Crossing, and so there's only a couple of properties to look at this particular time. Would this be one I'd have been considering? Probably not, but it's good to have a look at a property on a decent plot of land with a new sort of runway that's coming. There's a big overlay zone on lots of Melbourne. Meadow Heights, Dallas and Broadmeadows fall under it. There's 2 schedules. Schedule 1 is going to have the most aircraft noise, and you can't do any sort of development or anything with that. Potentially you could put a granny flat on if the site kind of permits. If you're in the Schedule 2, it's kind of medium noise, but you can actually do a subdivision if you've got land over 600 square meters. So it's something, if you're going to look in these areas, so first thing you look at is kind of if you're in that airport overlay, and then what you can do with the land.
That's a really good one to know, because otherwise you might be looking at a block going 700 square meters, how good.
Yeah.
But then if you've got an overlay that says, well, there's nothing you can do with this, it's not really 700 meters worth of value, or 700 square meters worth of value, I should say.
Yeah, 100%. We had a deal that kind of looked good on paper like a few weeks ago. I think it was 650, had a granny flat, but actually it was an unsanctioned granny flat as it turns out, but the yield was pretty good on it. Yeah, it was in Schedule 1.
I had one last week in 116 Warringah Crescent. Going on the recent sales, we're quoting 580 to 620 on it. We had over 30 buyers go through the Open, include also interstate buyers that were calling us, asking for a video. Probably had around 50 inquiries on the property. We had 4 registered bidders online, and we also had, on the actual day of the auction, we had 5 bidders at the auction. Had a reserve of 620,000 on it, and the buyers pushed it to 702,000. So you're looking probably even a good investor brought it. Yeah, it was in the new zoning, the housing and activity centre zoning. I think buyers were onto it, especially the interstate buyers.
So we're back on the highway, Steve. It's been a big day. It's time to get some dinner, but I want to ask you the question. If you're looking at all 3, what are you ranking as the best one, worst one? Would you actually buy them? Like, let's have the debrief, mate.
Yeah, no, it's been a good magical mystery tour of Melbourne today. So we looked at 3...
Magical mystery tour.
I had to fit in a Beatles sort of reference there.
Yeah.
So we've looked at 3 suburbs, 3 properties in the suburbs. So let's start from the bottom. I'd have my third one, like the Broadmeadows deal, like Natalia Street.
Yep.
Just think the location of that one isn't the best. You could see like not much heat, not many people looking around it. Clearly problems there. So that would be my number 3. Number 2, I'm going to go Frankston. Clearly that had a lot of interest in there, but it's going to go a bit too much. And like, you know, we've seen comparables around that sort of 715 mark around the corner, fully renovated. same land and here, so I don't think we're getting a discount there. So that'd be my number 2. So that leads, obviously the number 1 will be the Hoppers Crossing property. I think that's in a pretty good location, nice street, quite nice inside, probably needed a little bit of work. There's potentially some sort of value add you can do down the track. But again, I think if the price is right on that one, it's going to auction. That would be my deal of the day.
So if you're actually going to buy one of them though, are any of them ticking the boxes?
Well, here's the thing. I would say no. I think Hoppers Crossing is probably closest to coming and ticking all the boxes. We can see that's going to auction. I think the top price of the ban was 625, so we put on 10%. They're clearly looking for about 680,000 there. That doesn't make it a deal for me. And I just had some concerns about that kind of, that bolt on at the back, that sunroom. Yeah. And I think that would just be too hard basket. Can't do much from the floor plan, but it was so close.
One of the really important things that I want people to take out of this is if you're going to be taking the time to go interstate, like if you live in Melbourne, well, then just check it out. You've got all the time to actually go to all these. But if you're buying borderless and you're like, I want to look at a few more, this was literally you and I in the car from 7:30 in the morning until recently, what is it now, 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And we got to 3 opens. Yeah. It's not an efficient way of doing it. We just wanted to show everyone 3 completely different options. But if you're going to be flying interstate, stay for a day or 2, set up as many private inspections as you can, talk to as many agents as you can. It's been great already just talking to a few agents in this as well.
Fantastic.
Townhouses. I'm personally not a massive fan of townhouses. I'm not saying they can't work as a deal because you can still make some great money out of it. But my viewpoint on it has changed just after these 2 opinions we've had from real estate agents. On the ground, these have the highest amount of demand for them.
Yeah.
So looking at that, it's okay, maybe that is worth looking into in more detail. Maybe there actually are some pretty good townhouse deals out there. Don't know, it's only 2 opinions, but it's worth looking into.
Well, it's definitely some merit to it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And on top of that as well, making sure that you've actually got as many opens packed into a day as possible. Because realistically, we should have stayed in one area and we should have gone to 5, 6, 7, 8 different opens.
Yes.
Not 3 driving 100 and whatever kilometers that we've done.
Yeah.
It's not the most efficient use of time.
Yeah, I certainly think stacking though, zeroing on a couple of areas, get to 8 to 10. It's amazing what you just pick up almost subconsciously when you go through these deals, and you'll get something will stick out when you go into one and go, okay, this has got 2 living areas, or this is 600 square meters. Something will pop out. And then who knows, it might lead to another. All of a sudden you might get an agent goes, well, I've got this I've got this property coming up. Do you want to come and I can show you? But coming onto the ground, stacking these properties in one location, it might lead to something. So that kind of effort generally leads to some sort of reward when you do that as well. So yeah,
100%. And it's not just that as well. That's just the awesome building block for it. But and this is something that you'd see all the time, Steve, is you look at it on the photos. If there's a video, there's one okay, cool, this looks good, and then you get there, and all of a sudden there's the creaks that you can't see in the photo that you can hear. There's the neighbors yelling at each other. There's the smells. There's actually the photos have been doctored to all hell, and it's just been photoshopped, and it's not really like it is.
Yeah.
But otherwise, when you're looking at those comp sales later and you're trying to really assess how much is this worth, you've got such a better idea on what the property's actually worth versus just looking at the sold photos on realestate.com or Domain or RP.
Well, take 22 Golconda. We were looking at that. Decent deal next door, problems with the properties potentially, so maybe problematic neighbours is something you can't really tell from Google Maps or anything. So that's what boots on the ground, coming down and having a look, absolute gold.
Plus it's just fun. I like a bit of travel.
It is fun, especially look, it's blue skies now, and we've had a good tour of Melbourne.